It always feels like cheating to use a clip from The View for the daily cancellation, but sometimes it's unavoidable, such as the case here, where a 1-minute exchange between the squawking hens on The View serves as a convenient rundown of all of the major misnomers and false narratives that we've been hearing over the past 24 hours. And this is the great and sacred purpose of this show, I think, the public service it provides. It gives you a condensed, even more simplified summary of every dumb thing the left is saying about any given subject. And that is certainly the case here. And I'll let Whoopi take it away. Listen.
That's the question. What are we doing? Because why are we always at square one with this? And I swear to God, if I see another Republican senator talk about their heart being broken, I'm going to go punch somebody.
And thoughts and prayers.
I can't take it in their thoughts and prayers.
Yeah.
If your thoughts and prayers were really with everybody, you'd have done something by now. It's not like anybody's not trying to make this happen. What the hell is going on?
I want them to stop gaslighting me also. Stop saying it's not guns that kill people, it's people that kill people. It's guns that kill people, okay? Stop saying the opposite. Stop saying that mental illness is behind this. There's mental illness in every country in the world, and they don't have this problem. So stop gaslighting me on that one. And stop saying that you can have a good guy stop a bad guy with a gun. We have seen in both of these shootings in the past 3 weeks that a good guy tried and could not do it. So stop gaslighting us.
Well, that about sums it up. Again, everything you heard there is standard leftist boilerplate. We hear all this after every mass shooting, and we've heard it all incessantly since the shooting in Texas. So let's go through it. First, we get the complaints about thoughts and prayers. Forget about your thoughts and prayers. They say we need to do something. But if you're religious, as at least a few of those women on The View claim to be, and as many of the people who complain about thoughts and prayers claim to be, then you should know that praying is doing something. It shouldn't be the only thing you do. You should do other things along with praying, but praying is something. And the good thing is that nobody's ever argued that all we should do is pray. But in the immediate moments after a travesty like this, unless you're physically on the scene and actively involved in that way, there may be nothing else you can do in that moment at that exact time but pray. Okay? Like in the 5 minutes after you hear about something like this, and it happened 1,000 miles away. I want to do something. Well, in that exact moment, for most people, there's probably like almost nothing you could do in those 5 minutes. But you can pray. And why shouldn't you? It's a good thing. This is not an either-or choice. It's not mutually exclusive. Praying doesn't prevent you from taking physical action. So what exactly is the complaint here? Do we really think that the problem in our society is that we're praying too much? Is that the source of our troubles, really? As for doing something, what do you want to do? Now, the just do something mentality is a scourge on our nation and on our body politic. No, we do not want our lawmakers simply doing things. They already do a lot of things. Contrary to popular belief, they're not doing nothing. They're doing a lot of things. It's just that most of what they do is ineffectual, wasteful, and often actively harmful and counterproductive. There's nothing wrong with offering your prayers after a mass shooting. There is something wrong with shouting into the void, "Somebody do something." That's a phrase that I would really like to stop hearing. No problem is solved by doing something. Problems are solved by doing particular things. Okay? It's like if you have a flat tire, you're not going to solve it just by doing something. That's a particular problem, very small problem, and it'll be solved in a certain particular way. And that's true of every little small problem you encounter in your life. You don't solve it just by randomly taking action. You solve it with targeted action. And that's also true of the very big problems in our society. And the reality is that the particular things the gun control proponents want to do, if you can even get them to propose any particular things, will not actually prevent mass shootings and have not prevented them, as we discussed yesterday. A lot of these somethings have already been put in place in many states and cities across America, and yet shootings still occur, and occur quite often. Next, we hear that it's not people who kill people, but guns. And this is false, of course. The inverse cliche doesn't really work either. In truth, it's people with guns who kill people. But it's also people without guns who kill people. People without guns kill people. People with guns kill people. The common denominator here is what? People. Human choices, human behavior kills people. And so, as we've been harping on, we have to get to the bottom of the human behavior if we really want to make a dent in this problem. And finally, and here's the talking point I want to spend some time with. We hear that this doesn't happen in other countries. And I've heard this over and over and over again since Tuesday. This doesn't happen in other countries, they say. We're the only country this sort of thing happens. What sort of thing? And I suppose they mean mass casualty attacks. In fact, The Onion on Wednesday changed their homepage so that every headline on the whole site says, "No way to prevent this, says only nation where this regularly happens." This is a very common claim. The United States is unique across the entire world in this respect, the left says. Are they right? No, of course they aren't. I mean, not even a little bit, okay? It's not even a little right. In fact, just south of the border this week, a guy in Mexico shot up a hotel, killing 11 people. That was this week, okay? This week. And yet we're told this only happens in America? That's not even true this week. In fact, mass casualty attacks happen all the time in Mexico and all across Central and South America. They happen quite famously in the Middle East and all over Africa, many parts of Asia. Indeed, to make the claim that we're the only country where this kind of thing happens, you must disregard from the outset the vast majority of the globe and the vast majority of the people living on it. That seems like a rather important qualifier that the person claiming we're the only place where this happens should mention. They should stipulate by when they say only place, when they mean the only place if you don't count almost the entire world. Of course, the mass shootings in a place like Mexico are often different than they are here, in the sense that they're the same in that the victims, there still are victims who are being killed, but the attacks in Mexico are almost always cartel related. If you go to somewhere like East Africa, the terrorist group Al-Shabaab is usually responsible. In other parts of the world, it's a different terror cell or a different crime network. And that's because young, violent, hopeless, nihilistic men in Mexico are likely to end up working for cartels. In East Africa, they're going to find Al-Shabaab as their outlet. In America, they either end up joining street gangs or they stay isolated in their mom's basement until one day they explode. Different manifestations, but a similar phenomenon. This is the reason, by the way, why rankings of school shootings are irrelevant. You've perhaps seen that Wikipedia list floating around showing that America has hundreds of school shootings while Afghanistan has had only 3. What they neglect to mention is that Afghanistan also only has like 3 people in school. There are lots of murders, lots of mass slaughter happening in that country and in many of these other countries that have very few school shootings. It just doesn't happen at school very often because school isn't a big part of their culture. As we said, different manifestations, but still the same sort of thing, the same sort of terrible thing. Now, I made this point on Twitter yesterday, and I was immediately informed that my argument isn't valid because when people say that we're the only place in the world where this happens, they really, of course, just mean among Western countries. Well, that's a bit awkward, isn't it? So what you're saying is that only the predominantly white countries count? Is that so? When you say the entire world, you're actually just talking about the white world. Now, I don't agree with you that only the white countries count, only the predominantly white countries count. But let's just pretend that I do. Is it true that we're the only country in the Western world where this happens? No. In fact, a ranking of annual death rate per million from mass shootings in North America and Europe, according to World Population Review, puts us at number 11, behind Czech Republic, Belgium, Finland, Switzerland, Slovakia, Albania, Macedonia, France, Serbia, and Norway. Now, you could point out that Norway makes the list. In fact, it tops the list, largely because of one major attack back in 2011. That's true. But that's what happens when you measure this on a per capita basis, which you have to, because Norway has 5 million people and we have 330 million people. So if you're going to compare us in the number of people that are killed in mass shootings, the only fair way to do it is per capita. If you're measuring like the number of people who do anything, we're going to beat Norway on every measure for everything because we have so many more people than them. So when you measure it by per capita basis, the United States does not really stand out. In fact, John Lott with the Crime Prevention Research Center published a report about 2 years ago on this subject. And here's what it says in the abstract. It says, the U.S. is well below the world average in terms of the number of mass public shootings, and the global increase over time has been much bigger than for the United States. Over the 20 years from 1998 to 2017, our list contains 2,772 attacks and at least 5,764 shooters outside the United States and 62 attacks and 66 shooters within our country. By our count, the U.S. makes up less than 1.13% of the mass public shooters, 1.77% of their murders, and 2.19% of their attacks. All these are much less than the U.S.'s 4.6% share of the world population. Attacks in the U.S. are not only less frequent than other countries, they are also much less deadly on average. Out of the 101 countries where we have identified mass public shootings occurring, the United States ranks 66th in the per capita frequency of these attacks and 56th in murder rate. Not only have these attacks been much more common outside the U.S.'s share of these attacks has declined over time. And this is all the case, even though the U.S. is unique in having such a large and demographically mixed population. So what does this prove? That we don't have a problem? That we should do nothing to protect our kids in school? Obviously not. All it proves is that the narrative from the left is false. And the fact that it's false is important, because the truth is important. So when they say we're the only country where this happens, that is not true on any level, by any measure, no matter how you're looking at it. And you cannot solve a problem by misrepresenting it. But of course, they're not trying to solve the problem. They're trying to exploit it. And that's an entirely different thing from solving it. Hey, listen, hit the subscribe button. Do it right now. I demand it. And I thank you for your compliance. It is somewhat appreciated.